is absolutely wild as Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once, if you would.
You want to see it?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
You don't have to look out. It's me. It's Tubbsy. Hey, hi. This is AWA Unleashed. We're the #1 preeminent podcast dedicated to the AWA. But if you're watching this or listening, you already know that. And then you know that I'm joined by Slick Mick and Polish Joe. Everybody, these guys go by 2 words. I go by 1 word. So Polish, Slick, what's up, guys?
I think we should change your name to Tub Z.
Tub Z. See, I'd be a Tub X because I'm a Generation X. Tub X? Nah, but then that sounds like it's kind of X-rated. I don't want that.
And Tub Z sounds like you'd be a rapper. I don't think you're that either.
Fashizzle, my dizzle. What's up, Mizarks?
Holy.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Nice going, Joe.
Hey, we've got kind of a mixed bag here today. And I say that because we had gone into this week, and I think it's something that you had talked about, Mick, last week, about having a show just where we talk about all of the guys and gals that Eddie Sharkey had trained, because Eddie Sharkey's influence in terms of being a trainer, it is super impressive. And I'm glad that we can highlight it because there's so many. We talk about the coaching tree. This is Eddie Sharkey's coaching tree. Super impressive. So we're going to get to that. I'm not going to go through the promoting of the pinfall and the Patreon and everything, because before we get to that, I want to start out with some news and kind of something that we had just recently found out that's kind of shocking and sad, Nick.
Yeah. This happened at the end of July, that the wrestling world lost Mr. Electricity Steve Regal. And it's interesting. And again, I don't know if this is because, Steve maybe have been ill or he was kind of reclusive or what have you, but nobody was made aware of it until just recently when the Indiana Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame said, rest in peace, Steve Regal. This was really a shock. And Chris, you and I and Joe, we've talked about many, many times getting Steve on the program. And a couple of years ago, Chris, we had him. And then all of a sudden, due to scheduling difficulties, he was unable to make the show, and we never got him back on.
Yeah, we were literally right here, sitting here waiting for him to join us. And we were here. We had the documents. We had we had everything ready to go, and it didn't work. And you had asked me when was the last time that you had talked to Steve, and it had been a little bit, but we had been communicating as the last time exchange emails was back in June, and just a month before he died.
And I don't know, nobody knows yet the cause of death. When we look at the obituary and the funeral location for Steve, there's not even any indication of when there's going to be a memorial service or anything. So this is all just kind of shocking. But Steve Regal was one of my favorite guys in the business. I think he was vastly underrated. There's a great picture of Steve as the AWA light heavyweight champion. That's our good friend Joyce Poston took that photo of Steve. Of course, one half of the World Tag Team Champions, upsetting the Road Warriors, along with gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. Steve was a ring technician, and he's so underappreciated. And I think part of the problem is that Steve was competing in the era of the big man. You know, whether it was in the AWA or wherever he went after the AWA. And Steve came in probably about 200 pounds legit, I would guess, if that. But a great, great heel. You know, he had that kind of arrogance about him. The Fort Lauderdale leg lock, Steve Regal's, pet hold. He had a series of matches with that boombox guy here in the AWA area. Terrific talent and a terrific guy. And unfortunately, when he left the AWA, he kind of got lost in the shuffle. And again, it's the big man situation. He went to WWE and did some jobs on television, was never quite the star that he was in the AWA, but a great guy to to deal with and get along with. And this one really, really shocked me.
Shock is the right word. Mick, when we shared it early this morning in our pre-show meeting, I went and looked on Google right away to try to get some more information, and I didn't see anything. And it's very strange to me that in the wrestling community, we were not made aware of this until over 4 months later that he had passed away. But besides all of that, sadly, looking at the obituary, there are some photos, and it is indeed Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal. Of course, you brought up the Road Warriors title change. Said it on the show many times. My very, very, very first work in the AWA was running camera, doing interviews with Garvin, Regal, and Precious the morning after they beat the Road Warriors. And so this one, they all hurt. They just do. And as we all get older, we unfortunately see more of it, especially when we take a look retrospectively at the AWA. But this one just stings a little bit extra for me because of that initial contact, that initial work that I had done in the AWA. Nothing bad to say about Steve. Didn't work with him a whole ton. I'd say a good, it was maybe, he wasn't a part of Wrestle Rock. So Steve must have left the AWA early 86.
That's what I'm thinking. Time wise, it would have been early 86 because I worked with Steve on a couple of independent shows, and I think that was late 85 or early 86. So yeah, you might be right on the timeline, Joe. I told you guys before we went on the air, the one conversation I had with Steve about him leaving the AWA, and he fit right in with the AWA at the time. He said, I would have stayed. It wasn't the money. It was that Vern basically said, you go ahead if you want to go. You need me. I don't need you. And, we've heard that story before on occasion. And Steve Regal, unfortunately, left the AWA. And again, his career, I don't want to say it bottomed out. He was around for a while. And he did some wrestling in the Indiana area for Dick the Bruiser, teaming up with Spike Huber. And then they had a feud going on. But again, very, very underrated guy. And all of a sudden you see Steve Regal passed away. My God, and then you see he was 73 years old or 74 years old. And you go, wait a second, that's not possible because I haven't seen Steve Regal in 30 or 40 years. So he's kind of frozen in time. And then all of a sudden you see this. So condolences to his family and friends and fans. Really an underrated talent, Mr. Electricity.
Yeah, rest in peace, Steve. For those that don't know, he married Wilbur Snyder's daughter.
Yes.
which sort of explains why he went from Fort Lauderdale to Indiana. Usually you hear the reverse side as somebody gets a little bit older, but rest in peace, Steve. Thank you for being a part of my introduction into AWA video production.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that we could not make it work. But we really did try.
Yeah, we did.
We tried, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And sad because it's just so surprising. Let's switch gears because you talked about Vern, and everybody. It's like, oh, Vern Gagne's got this great list, and we know that the list of guys that Vern Gagne has trained is, legendary. Although Vern Gagne is not the trainer of champions, that is the focus of today's show. And Mick, in order to get the feel for Eddie Sharkey and what it was like to train under Eddie Sharkey, maybe we should talk to someone who trained under Eddie Sharkey.
Well, we're going to do things kind of in reverse order here. We're talking to a trainee who came in towards the end of Eddie's training camp. And then after we finish up the conversation with him, we'll talk about the major superstars that trained under Eddie Sharkey. But this guy that I'm going to bring in right now, he's no stranger to me. He's no stranger to the wrestling fans in the upper Midwest. He's no stranger to the court system. he's no stranger to various buffets around the United States, but he is my nemesis for the past 30 years. Three men. There he is, Mark Covell, the Golden Idol. How are you, buddy? Hello,
Mark. Are you mad?
Hey, now he's trolling you. I feel like he's trolling you.
He's being the arch nemesis.
Back here in a little bit. He was there. Nope, he's gone. See, you chased him off, Mick.
You know,
chased him off.
This doesn't surprise me at all. This rat bastard, I think, set me up just so he could get a cameo on the podcast.
Yep.
Get his face out there, keep himself relevant to the wrestling community, and now he's gone.
Well, as we are live. We record live. We don't really edit the shows.
No.
So think of this as, you watch a newscast and all of a sudden there's, technical difficulties. So I'll chalk it up to that. But one of the things I want to bring up with the list that we will eventually get to of all of Eddie Sharkey's trainees. Okay, can you hear us, Mark?
Yes, now I can hear you. I had no volume.
Welcome to AWA Unleashed. And now you and your arch nemesis, Mick Karch, can have your back and forth.
Yes.
Don't tease me like that, Idol. I thought you were gone, and I got into a really good mood. And now you resurface.
I just lost the volume again.
Oh, for God's sakes. Can you hear us?
Let me try again.
Okay, so...
You see what I mean? It's 36 years later, and this guy is still tormenting me.
He is, because you know what? Everything is fine. Our audio, our video, everything's fine. And then I feel like it's like...
It could very well be that the reception in the federal penitentiary is not all that great.
Well, he is. You look and he is around. Some fences and some wires, and it really would be apropos if he was in the clink, right? That's the feeling that I get, that if there's any place you're going to see Golden Idol, it's going to be in the clink. Isn't that right, Mick?
Oh, there's no question about it. And, I'm not sure what the charge would be this time. Oh, there he is now. Now where are you going? You are a pain in the ass. Where are you going now?
I'm finding good Wi-Fi. I guess the Wi-Fi here in Ohio is disgusting in the middle of the winter.
Well, we'll try to talk to you. And if this doesn't work, go away.
You've been telling me that for years.
Yes, I have. And you've come back like a bad rash.
It went
Obviously-
out again.
Oh,
Okay. Well,
oh.
as we,
See, most people would be like, you know what? We got to start this over.
No.
We have to start this over. Us, no. If there's
Chris, I'm
one
gonna
thing
tell you
we've
something.
always praised, like on this show, it's authenticity.
You didn't deal with this guy, and I'm going to tell you this is absolutely, I would expect no less from the Golden Idol. I'm serious. This guy has been a planter's wart on the foot of professional wrestling for 36 years, and he's continuing to do so. Maybe what we'll do is we'll have Idol on another time so we can put some emphasis on paying homage to Eddie Sharkey. We'll have Idol on for a whole hour sometime, putting himself over. In the meantime, we've lost everybody that was tuning into the podcast this week. Idol, you did it again.
well, just consider this to be the Rocky Mountain Thunder of the AWA Unleashed episodes.
That's a pretty low bar. Okay, so we'll just go on to the list here. Then we're gonna go back to the doc.
Well,
Yeah.
so sorry to interrupt. One of what I was going to get to before when we were filling in the time, the list of talent that we'll present that Eddie trained. It's a who's who of 80s wrestling. And I was amazed. There are some of the names that I wasn't aware of that Eddie trained. Some of the guys were from the 70s, but the majority were from the 1980s. And what an impressive list it is. So take it away.
You know, what's interesting about it is when you talk about Minnesota professional wrestling and you talk about the trainees, the first thing everybody thinks about is Vern Gagne. Vern trained this guy. And justifiably so. Vern trained like 150 guys into the business. Some of them legendary, the Ric Flairs, the Sergeant Slaughters, what have you, Ricky Steamboat. But I'm telling you what, Eddie Sharkey, in the years that he became a trainer, and this was in the early 1970s, by the way, Eddie, after he had his falling out with Vern and shot up the wrestling office, they had their falling out, and Eddie decided he was going to go on and do his own thing and train guys into the business. Eddie Sharkey himself, we talked about Eddie's credentials as not only as a trainer, but as a wrestler, of course. He had gotten into the business about 1960-ish, give or take. He was a junior heavyweight, a light heavyweight before it was fashionable. Look at that guy. Joe, you talk about the proverbial brick shithouse. Oh my God, Eddie was put together. Eddie's what, about 5'6" on a good day?
Yeah.
I mean, this is and that porn star mustache and the Ringo Starr haircut. That is vintage 1970s Eddie Sharkey. And
He looks like he should be a villain in an old Hollywood Western movie. Just put a cowboy hat on him and a long coat, and that's the look that Eddie gives to me there.
He's going to meet you in front of the saloon at high noon for the shootout.
And we know that he's very good at a shootout.
Well, I don't need to belabor that, but Eddie had a storied past as a youth. Let's just say that. And he makes no bones about it. He was, in and out of reform school and he was a troublemaker. Eddie was a street kid, and he turned his focus and his angst or whatever it was into physical combat in the world of professional wrestling. And again, I said that Eddie started training guys in the 1970s, and then of course he was still wrestling periodically. But the list of guys, again, you talk about Vern's crew. I tell you what, let's hold up these Eddie Sharkey names to the Vern Gagne names. We'll do them individually here. I think we got 21 or 22 guys that Eddie absolutely broke into the business. And let's take a look and see. You'll know all of them. I'm telling you, folks.
Yep. Start that roll call, Chris. Or Tub Z. Yo.
Tub Z. Okay. All right. I see what you're doing.
Are you?
Let me get the right one here.
Whatever happened to the Golden Idol? Anybody ever hear what happened to that guy? I know he was around.
Hey!
There he is.
Now what?
He's
I'm
back.
back.
Jeez, God.
I had to pay my Wi-Fi bill.
Well, no wonder. I remember some of those payoffs at George's and Fridley that you handed me, you and Ray Webby and Eddie at the end of the night.
Wait a minute. You got good money for that.
Good money. Idol, we're going to be talking about the stars that Eddie trained into the business, his early years. But I wanted to talk to you about your experience with Eddie. I know that he trained you into the business as a manager.
Lost the sound again. Unbelievable.
Wi-Fi bill.
All right, here's what we'll do. We'll reschedule Idle. So we'll reschedule that. We'll just continue to get into the list here. So we'll just tell Idle we'll reschedule it for.
You can't say we didn't try.
You can't say we didn't
and try.
Yeah, and you know what? Technology. It's Wi-Fi is a great thing till it's not a great thing. So
it's not a great thing when you're sitting inside a tin can and try to talk on a podcast either. But here nor there, we'll get Idle on another time. Yes. Now let's get to the list of the Eddie Sharkey trainees. This podcast, this one right here, is going to go down in history, guys.
I think in the description we should just tell people it really starts at 22 minutes.
Oh God. Yeah.
Well, actually, no. You gotta see the Steve Regal bit, but you got a little bit of put it this way, there's a little time where the guys got blown up and they just were in a headlock for about 8 minutes. No action in the ring.
There's one of Eddie Sharkey's trainees. Look at him there. Look at the Dukester. Derek Starfire Dukes, of course, went through Eddie's camp when Eddie was wrestling or promoting and training for the Pro Wrestling America promotion. Derek Starfire Dukes was one of his prime trainees, one of his prize trainees. And of course, it vaulted Derek Dukes into an AWA run for a while, wrestled all over the world, wrestled into Australia, went on a tour there. Duke's great wrestler and great talent. Just an example, scratching the surface of the Eddie Sharkey trainees.
Yeah, and Duke still lives in Minnesota. Have not seen him forever. Friends with him on Facebook. Would love to. Have we tried getting Duke's on?
We actually had him before you came on with us.
Oh, okay.
We had Derek on the air, and Derek Dukes, the guy that had to put over football player Mark Gastineau. He had to do the job to Gastineau in a boxing match, and God love Derek, he took a flat back bump after taking, I believe, a modified left hook or something like, might have been a jab. But nonetheless, shortly after that, Derek fled the United States and went on tour with us in Australia till the heat died down. But Derek Dukes, one of Eddie Sharkey's prize trainees. This guy right here. Now you got a combination going here because Eddie trained him as well as Brad Ringens trained this guy. So he's got a little bit of both in his background. And that is our friend, gentleman Jerry Lynn, Mr. Dynamic, Mr. JL, according to Stan Kowalski, now a coach, and with the AEW promotion, legendary wrestler as far as I'm concerned. You can't extol the virtues of somebody as much as you can with Jerry Lynn. He's the package.
I can sum up Jerry Lynn in a couple of words: class act.
Oh yeah.
Just truly is one of the nicest guys that I've met and worked with in the business. And great to see that he still is in the business because he should be.
Oh yeah, he should, and arguably he and the Lightning Kid started the light heavyweight, if not the the luchador phase in professional wrestling down in the Global Wrestling Federation, late 1980s. But Jerry Lynn, great guy. Again, give Brad Ringen some of the credit, but Eddie Sharkey did have a hand in training Jerry Lynn. Speaking of this guy right here, he trained actually in Florida under the great Malenko, which isn't that it's not half bad. Then he moved up to the state of Minnesota, the Twin Cities, and he became the Lightning Kid. And I'm telling you, Sean Waltman, when he was wrestling at Ropers and Fridley, if he was $170, I'd be really surprised. But you saw even then the talent that this guy had, and Eddie Sharkey again. Look at the early roster of guys that Eddie brought into the business. Again, Wally Carbo at one point, attended a card at George's and Fridley. And speaking of Sean Waltman, he said he'll never draw a dime. He's too small. Well, you misfired on that one, Wally. But Sean Waltman was very, very close with Eddie Sharkey, and I think they maintain contact today.
Well, I think it's a testament to what the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
Because obviously once you opened up the Lightning Kid book and he became what he did in professional wrestling, it was a pretty damn good read.
This is a guy, WWE Hall of Famer. Lightning Kid, 1, 2, 3 Kid, 6 in WCW, X-Pac. This guy has done it all. And I'm telling you, I'm proud to know Sean Waltman, and Eddie Sharkey is the guy that got him going here in the PWA Twin Cities, 1989, 90-ish, as he did this guy right here, a guy that you worked with, I believe, Joe,
Many
in the Rochester days of the AWA, Ricky Rice.
Yeah, phenomenal talent for his work inside the ring. Ricky was very, very athletic. Mic skills, little to be desired, but no denying that Ricky Rice was incredible inside the ring, part of the top guns in the AWA. Any idea what Ricky's up to nowadays?
It's one of those guys that kind of dropped off the face of the earth. I know he was living, I believe, up in the Duluth area, and then got out of the business. And I have not, actually, the last time I saw Ricky Rice was about 20 years ago at the funeral for Ray Webby, of all things, Eddie Sharkey's partner in the PWA. Ricky was a great all-around athlete, tremendous conditioning. And again, one of Eddie Sharkey's prime trainees, made that advance into the AWA days towards the end of the AWA run. Good guy, Ricky Rice.
Yeah. What do we have next, Tubbsy? Aha.
Oh, one of the more controversial guys in the business. And I say that with all due respect. That's Austin Aries. Austin, needless to say, once he got going in the business, made a splash wherever he appeared. And I don't know, this is hearsay. I think he may have rubbed some people the wrong way a little bit, maybe with some attitude stuff. But again, it's hearsay. This is what I'm hearing. But he was a great talent. Again, I mean, we saw Austin Aries carry championships in various promotions around the country. Big time player on the national scene. And again, an Eddie Sharkey trainee.
I look at that photo and it's a little satanic.
Just a little.
He does have that evil look to him as his gimmick. I'm not saying that that's the way that he is in real life, but phenomenal talent. Had a hell of a career, and as he said, another Eddie Sharkey trainee, and we've got a bunch more that it's like a holy shit.
Yeah. Vernsky was not the only one here in the state of Minnesota. There's another guy. We've talked about him many times. The Z-Man himself, the late Tom Zink. an Eddie Sharkey trainee, and we talked about the attitude that Tom had, not only about the wrestling business and about payoffs, but I think about life in general. Having taken a couple of road trips with Tom Zenk over the years, we've talked about the fact that Tom was his own worst enemy. But Eddie Sharkey, again, the guy that brought Tom Zenk into the wrestling world. Zenk, I believe, was a Mr. Minnesota and was discovered by Eddie Sharkey, and the rest is history.
Yeah, Tom unfortunately had some addiction demons back in his day, but I'll say his locker room attitude really rubbed promoters the wrong way. It seemed like wherever that he went, you can't deny great looking guy, fabulous physique, in-ring work was top notch. And sadly, I think Tom left us about a year or two ago, something along those lines.
Maybe longer than that, yeah.
Maybe longer, but but sadly, way too early. And of course, you got to mention, I mean, he went on to be a part of the, was it the Can-Am connection, the WWF with Rick Martel? So definitely over, but his attitude just sort of rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah, the Z-Man in WCW, and I've told the story many times. They're running a show at St. Anthony, Maine. Eddie Sharkey is, and it's intermission. And Tom Zenk is going to come on right after intermission, and some kids are bouncing up and down in the ring, waiting for the matches to start. And our friend Sharkey goes up to the kids in Eddie Sharkey fashion. Kids, you got to get out of the ring. Zenk's going to be taking a bump right where you're playing. And sure as shit, he did about 10 minutes later. But Eddie Sharkey trainee, the Z-Man, Tom Zenk.
And next on the list, I think you know who this guy is. The Minnesota Russian.
Minnesota Russian. And here's a guy who legitimately changed his name. He legally had his name changed. Formerly Scott Simpson of the Twin Cities area became the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff. And he was an Eddie Sharkey trainee about the same time that you had a lot of the other big, rough, tough, no-nonsense dudes getting into the business under Eddie's wing. We'll talk more about the rest of them. But certainly when you're looking at the guys who made it huge in the wrestling business and got their start with Eddie Sharkey, Nikita Koloff's got to be right up there.
And I'm going to refer to him as Scott Simpson for this quick little tidbit, but I know a guy who went to college with him. I know this guy very well, by the way. And even back then, when he was still playing football, I believe up in Moorhead, Minnesota, Scott would... He would be the Russian. He was Nikita Koloff back to college before he got into training to be a professional wrestler. And the stories of back then, don't call me Scott, I'm Nikita. Even he'd go over to his buddies' houses. No, I'm Nikita Koloff. And he's one of those that truly lived his gimmick.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And
remember John Nord having some fun at his expense, where they were like at a party or something, and John was there, and Scott or Nikita pulled up, and apparently John, Nikita's like, hey, I want to keep kayfabe, whatever. And the first thing that John said is, "Hi, Scotty," and I guess Nikita's head just like fell down, and the whole gimmick was shot. So. That's what I'll remember with Nikita Koloff when John Nord said that story. That he's like, "Oh, call me Nikita." He's like, "Hey, Scotty."
And we've talked about the difference between the Vern Gagne trainees and the Eddie Sharkey trainees. And Vern had the wrestlers, sometimes a more streamlined, athletic wrestling background. Eddie Sharkey, on the other hand, went for the big guys, the bouncers at the bars, and the guys, whether they were heel or babyface, He went a different route, more the roughhouse style. And certainly Nikita Koloff is a prize pupil of Eddie Sharkey. This guy here, the dog-faced gremlin, Rick Steiner. You know, is there anybody that exemplifies old school, no nonsense, straight ahead, no bullshit, I'm going to power slam you through the mat, than does Rob Rick Steiner, Sharkey trainee?
An accomplished amateur wrestler.
Yep.
As well. Became part of the Steiner brothers in WCW. You don't really hear or see as much of Rick, but correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't he have a little lineage that's doing pretty well in today's industry?
I believe there's a guy out there named Bron Breakker that is carrying on his old man's legacy. And if you look at Bron Breakker physically, and just maybe add a goatee and a mustache, man, there he is. There's Rick Steiner. Of the two of them, Rick and Scott, I think Scott has developed more notoriety, shall we say, and not necessarily in a good way, than Rick Steiner has. But again, look at this list that we're giving you, folks. If you were not aware before, Eddie Sharkey is the guy that got these guys started.
And it's interesting, we've got Rick, but not Scott.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I should know Chris, who trained Scott Steiner. I know he was an All-American at the University of Michigan. Great amateur wrestler. I should know who trained him, brought him into the business. I don't. But Rick Steiner, one of the all-time greats, and I think his kid is going to do very, very well in the business.
Yeah. So we went from Moorhead with Nikita Koloff. Let's go to the other side of the river and my alma mater, North Dakota State, and someone who's still well known at North Dakota State.
That's an Eddie Sharkey trainee again, folks. No, it wasn't a Vern Gagne trainee. Eddie broke Bob Backlund into the business. Bob had moderate success in the AWA. Of course, when he went out to the WWF and defeated superstar Billy Graham for their championship out there, the sky was the limit for Bob Backlund. I know there are varying opinions on whether or not the Mr. Backlund character towards the end of his career, when Bob was, like complete nutso. I don't know. A lot of people love it. A lot of people hated it, but there's no question about it. Bob Backlund, from an amateur wrestling standpoint, Joe, and with Pro Wrestling USA, he came in and worked with Larry Zbyszko a few times around the horn. Backlund was the real deal, one of the all-time greats.
Certainly deserves to be on a list. I'm not going to say a top 10, but on a list of all-time greats. His work inside the ring was phenomenal. But, I don't want to diminish his accomplishments, but it's sort of a milquetoast. He didn't have a gimmick when he was champion. He was just a wrestler who looked the gimmick, looked the part, and obviously he got the strap put on him in the WWF. But I will forever have flashbacks to Vern's funeral when Bob delivered an impromptu run-in promo that I think anybody that was there still scratching their heads like, what the fuck was that? But the only answer I can give you is, that's Bob.
That is Bob, and he is he's developed a reputation over the years as kind of being off the wall. What I will say, if you think about it in terms of, you mentioned his technical skills, Bob Backlund may have been the last wrestler in the WWF who was a wrestler before they went to the new era. He lost the championship to the Iron Sheik, and after that it was Hulk Hogan, and then the rest is history. So Backlund may have been the last pure wrestler to hold a WWF championship. And again, Eddie Sharkey, folks, not Vern Gagne. Even though Bob wrestled in the AWA early on, Eddie's the guy that brought him into the business.
Yeah, and as we move on to our list, take a look at that beast.
Oh,
The
Terry
Warlord.
Sapinski. Terry Sapinski, the Warlord. National acclaim wherever he went. He's still very active on the convention and reunion circuit. He's very, very popular. He and the Barbarian, who, of course, they did some great work on a national scale. I remember watching Terry Sapinski, the Warlord. This guy was greener than grass. I would see him in the matches at George's and Fridley, Roper's and Fridley. Big dude. You knew that eventually he was going to break out of that shell, but you didn't know how soon. Kind of tripping over his own feet. But I'm telling you, great guy, nice guy, and again, a prize pupil of the trainer of champions, Eddie Sharkey.
Take a look at the number of wrestlers that we have on this list, and Eddie Sharkey's trainees would have made for one hell of a battle royal, because we've got 21 wrestlers on this list, and we're just about halfway through. One of my favorites, Nord the Barbarian.
Unreal. Chris talked about Nord giving away Nikita Koloff's gimmick a
He's
little
one
bit
of
early.
the funniest, nicest guys that I've ever met in the wrestling business. Like, John Nord is a legitimately genuine human being.
We had, Chris, we had the pleasure of having John on the podcast. And to say that John Nord is off the wall is an understatement, but he is as genuine. This is the kind of guy, if you were in high school, and we've heard the stories, this is a guy you wanted to hang around with. Either you were going to wind up in a fist fight or you were going to wind up in jail, but you know you were going to have a hell of a night of laughs with John Nord.
Yep.
And Johnny, of course, has been having some real serious physical ailments over the past couple of years. And unfortunately, recently as well, he had to curtail and almost basically stop his appearances at the reunions. But what a legend, whether he was Nord the Barbarian or the Berserker, and he'll always be Nord the Barbarian to me. He didn't need the horns on his head, and he will always be the guy that put people through the car windshield at his father's used car lot. Nord the Barbarian, one of our great friends. Love the guy.
Don't make your payment, then we care. If you've not seen the old Nord Motor Company commercials, they're on YouTube. Do yourself a favor. I remember the first time John Nord walked into the control room at the AWA. All I could do was just like, holy shit, this guy is huge. He was tall, as you can see from the photo, put together like a brick shit house. Add to that he got the go-ahead from Bruiser Brody to replicate that gimmick, and teamed with Brody on several occasions in the AWA. But yeah, Johnny, it was great to meet up with him at one of your AWA reunions. I've seen him a couple of times since. He called me one time just to shoot the shit, and it was great just to relive the memories of working together in the AWA. But admittedly, it's sad that he's too young to be going through the health issues that he is. So Johnny, hope you get well soon, get back out on that circuit, and make a few bucks showing up at shows.
One of the funniest guys ever. I mean, Chris hit it right on the head. Love you, Johnny. All the best to you. This guy right here. Oh, I love this man. You talk about a guy whose personality away from the camera and away from the ring completely belied the character. That's our good buddy, the late T. Joe Khan. And T. Joe was another Eddie Sharkey trainee. He's from the Twin Cities area here. He wrestled all over the country, had a big splash in the NWA territory. Here in the AWA, he teamed up with Soldad Ustinov, I believe, on occasion. legendary, one of the great skits that we did on Saturday night at ringside. T-Joe was out there doing an interview with Eddie Sharkey prior to one of T-Joe's matches at George's and Fridley. And T-Joe's a heel, he's a little bit off the wall, to say the least. And T-Joe turns to me and he says, "I need a knick-knack." "Well, what do you mean you need a knick-knack?" "I need a knick-knack." He turns around and proceeds to lift the SNR logo, the wooden 6-foot logo, off its moorings in the backdrop and walk off with it. I did not know that was coming. And it was just like, holy shit. And I said, "Eddie, aren't you going to go get him?" And Eddie said, no, you go get him. And this was the kind of guy that T-Joe Khan was. He headlined a lot of shows for Eddie at the various venues in the Twin Cities area. Again, sadly, we lost T-Joe a few years back, but again, what a character. What a character. Played that foreign menace to a T.
He did indeed tag with Soldad Ustinov and a part of, I'll call it the Sheik's Army V2.
Yeah.
After the Patera, Duncombe, Patera, and Blackwell era. T-Joe Khan, Boris Zukov, Soldad Ustinov, and of course Adnan. And speaking of Soldad Ustinov, here we are.
Our good buddy Jim Lanning. And, I don't want to break it to anybody. I don't want to shatter any illusions. Jim Lanning from Minneapolis, not Soldad Ustinov. Eddie Sharkey trainee. When I first started working with Eddie and the PWA, so this would have been 1986-ish. Jim was in, not as Soldad Ustinov, he was just being called the Russian Crusher with a K. And went all over the horn with the PWA up into Winnipeg for Tony Condello. Did not too bad a Russian dialect impression when he came out for his television interviews. Didn't speak a whole hell of a lot, or, you might have caught a little bit of English slipping in there. But Jim Lanning's a great guy. And Chris, I know we are trying desperately to get this guy on the show. I would love to talk the old AWA. You might have the inside track.
Yes, I've had a contact who's got a contact who's got a contact, and and I'm really blurry, so it's even better.
Can one of the contacts fix, just adjust your focus ring, or?
And again, I have to reiterate what I've told before. This guy right here, ladies and gentlemen, this guy that you're looking at the screen right now, attempted to derail my audition with the AWA as I was cutting a promo with Nick Bockwinkel to air for the audition. I looked out of the corner of my eye, and this big Russian, pseudo-Russian, hairy, pimply ass of Soldad Ustinov, Jim Lanning, was mooning me off in the distance, and I didn't bite. I don't mean that literally. I did not flinch, and I went ahead with the interview. I will never forget that. I owe Jim Lanning something. But again, Jim Lanning, Russian Crusher, Soldad Ustinov, one of Eddie's prime pupils.
Well, I remember when he displayed the Russian star for you to salute, and you did not flinch. But I believe afterwards you were like, "What the fuck are you doing, Lanning?"
Yeah, that's correct. Very, very funny guy. This is a prize pupil, and we've talked the virtues of Larry Cameron so many times. You talk about a guy, Joe and Chris, that he wasn't around long enough to obtain the stardom that he deserved. He broke in with Eddie Sharkey, wrestled around the horn for the PWA for a long time. I went to Australia with Larry Cameron and a Rob Russin tour with the IWA. He was over like gangbusters as the heel champion. He had an aura about him. He had an arrogance about him. Outside the ring, the nicest, most soft-spoken guy you could ever want to meet. And I remember when I first met him, Eddie said to me, "This guy is the real deal. You're going to remember Larry Cameron." And unfortunately, we lost Larry 22 years ago, I believe, already. Larry the Butcher Cameron, Lethal Larry Cameron, whatever you want to call him. It's really tough that he never got the national acclaim that he deserved.
He came into the AWA near the dying days of the AWA, and I mean like literally right at the end. Wasn't there long. Everything that you said about him, both on camera and off, spot on. His promos, his mic skills absolutely cracked me up, and I loved it. Larry is somebody that I think if he would have been able to be in the AWA a few years earlier, would have made a huge impact, not only in the AWA, but in professional wrestling. But yet again, another Eddie Sharkey trainee.
Eddie Sharkey trainee. And, would this guy had not fit in perfectly with Ron Simmons or Hacksaw Butch Reed?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could see that trifecta there. Lethal Larry Cameron, great guy. Sorely missed. Here's another guy that Eddie brought into the business. And I would venture to say, and I think Eddie would agree with this, probably Eddie's best friend in the business. The late Thunderblood Charlie Norris. Charlie worked almost extensively or exclusively with the PWA when Eddie brought him into the business, trained him into the business. They became like brothers, literally, or maybe even was like father and son. Eddie absolutely loved Charlie Norris. Charlie, of course, went on to wrestle in the WCW area for a short period of time. Got into some legal back and forth with the higher ups at WCW. So unfortunately that, kind of curtailed in a hurry. Charlie was another great guy. Headlined virtually every main event at the PWA shows at George's, Roper's, and Fridley. And super guy. Saw Charlie a couple of years ago at one of the MAW events. Was the last time I saw him. And Eddie was really, I can tell you, devastated, absolutely crushed his heart when Charlie passed away.
And Charlie was an authentic Native American or Indian. I'm just trying to cover all my bases there to make sure that I got it covered. I got to work with Charlie. I shouldn't say work with him. I got to meet him in the later years. And just what a nice guy. It sadly left us too early. He would attend the MAW shows quite a bit, which of course is owned by one of the owners is a Native American, and good talent. And again, look at this list that Eddie trained, and every single one of them, dare I say, had the utmost respect for Eddie to the very end. And I'll let you handle this one, Mick.
I appreciate that. These are not Vern Gagne trainees again, folks. They were shining lights towards the end of the AWA run. It was kind of slim pickings back then. But Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom as the Destruction Crew, AWA World Tag Team Champions. Wayne, of course, still up here in the state of Minnesota. Mike Enos has moved down to Florida. As you alluded to, Joe, their gimmick, every time Mike Enos would open up his mouth to say something on the air during a promo, Wayne would cut in and say, "I got this, Mike," and that was it. That was the extent of what Mike Enos would say in the promo. The Beverly Brothers shit, I hated. I absolutely detested when they went to the WWF and had that gimmick. Prior to that, they actually were in WCW as the New Minnesota Wrecking Crew under masks. And then, of course, they went to WWF as the Beverly Brothers. But to me, no, they are always and will be forever the Destruction Crew, two of Eddie's absolute top trainees.
And I will have to add that they were, to me, the last shining light of the AWA. They were over. We had Larry Zbyszko and some other talent, but they were the last of the new blood in the AWA. And the promos, as we've alluded to. Hold on a second, Mike. I'll handle this.
Yeah.
And Wayne delivered. You know, the promos were great. The Beverly Brothers thing, I just don't ever want to remember that. They will forever, as you said, be the Destruction Crew.
Two tough guys, particularly Wayne Bloom. You did not fuck around with Wayne Bloom. And again, as you said, Joe, in the dark days of the AWA towards the end of the run, these guys were the beacon, and they carried that championship very, very well. Eddie Sharkey trainees.
Bam!
Now, there you go. Oh, boy. That is our good friend.
Say something about a couple of trainees. Just go ahead and do it.
No, you know what? I wouldn't have thought of that, but that was good. That was very good, Chris. Those three are ODB, and Jessie Creesa. God, we love her. She is just an amazing, amazing woman. Brought into the business by Eddie Sharkey way back when, probably, gosh, I'm going to say 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago, maybe. Her run in the world of wrestling is legendary. What she did not do was compete in the WWF because for some reason she didn't fit the mold. You know, it was during an era of, pinup models and fitness models and what have you. And just didn't cut the mustard in their eyes. But what a tremendous talent. And you talk about somebody who has persevered and made her own way in this world, not only in wrestling, but in life. She has faced so many obstacles, and she just does not quit.
I love that she is unapologetically herself. Like, she's not she wasn't going to change who she was to fit what somebody else might want her to be. Right. She is who she is. She is she's from here. She has got her food truck with her husband, and yeah, she's living life her way. And in that respect, like, I love it. I love people who are just themselves, and it's like, you like it, great. If not, that's fine too. I'm still going to be me. And she has never changed. And all the time that I've watched her, I don't know her like you guys do, but she just has not. She's Jessie Creesa, and that's who she is.
Chris, you talk about how genuine she is. You read her posts on Facebook, and she's an inspiration too, because she'll come on and she'll say, go train. Don't sit there. You want to get something in life, go get it. Stop making excuses. And this is what she did, Joe, even driving the food truck from one end of the country to the other by herself for many, many years. Her original food truck caught fire, was completely destroyed. That would have set anybody back, but she persevered, got a new food truck. She still makes appearances all over the country. And she was a ringsider of the week on SNR when she was about 8 or 10 years old. And little did I know, but we just love Jessie ODB.
I first met Jess when was working Johnny Caffarella from Glow fame. He had found some investors to do an updated version of Glow, and it was called Crush. And Jessie was a part of that. She was the ex-Terminator. I will just say this, that she wasn't quite what we've become used to seeing and knowing, if you will. But yeah, I mean, she was green then. She was, I don't want to say that I got to know her very well during the Crush days. It was just, a one-night shoot. But she was professional. She was pleasant. She was nice. I mean, every good superlative that I could add on to it. And years later, still seeing her and work with her. We've had her on the podcast, and a treat. I enjoyed her ODB gimmick with the little flask all of the time. And if I'm not mistaken, that flask was filled with what we thought it was filled with.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's kayfabe, and then there's legit, and everything that Jess did was legit, straight ahead, no nonsense, no bullshit, and that's what we love about her. Again, folks, we're putting these people up here not necessarily to get them over because they're over. We want to remind you these are all Eddie Sharkey trainees, and there's another one. Oh my God. Yeah. What can you say that we haven't said already many, many times about Medusa Michelli? I was there at the very beginning when Deuce was trained by Eddie Sharkey, and I believe Dixie Jordan was still involved a little bit with Eddie training Medusa back in the day. She was green as grass, Joe, in those Ropers, Georges, and Fridley days. You could tell how athletic she was. I mean, she was tough as nails. You didn't want to mess with her even in 1986. You didn't want to screw around with Medusa. What she developed into, arguably one of the most important female wrestlers of the modern era. Her influence is still felt today. She's still legendary on the wrestling reunion circuit. She's an author. She's a monster truck driver. She's the real deal. And again, when I think back to those early days at George's, when I would just see her brawl on the outside of the ring with no technical skills to speak of, even when she went to the AWA, took her a little while to get her feet underneath her.
Well, she had her first match at Super Clash 2 against Sherry Martel. And I think it was, I forgot which one of the times that I was able to meet up with Deuce again in the later years. But she had commented how nervous she was going against Sherry Martel. Not only her first AWA match, but at an event billed as Super Clash, so more than just a house show. And you're right, she was green. She admits that she was green. But the other part of her being nervous was not only was it her first match, but it's against Sherry Martel. And thankfully, Sherry helped carry the match. Deuce held her own on it. And of course, as you went on to list all of her accolades over the years, Medusa Michelli, Debbie Michelli, one of the, if not the greatest woman wrestler of all time.
She came on SNR, one of my first guests. So this would have been 1988. And then she came back for some subsequent appearances on the show because people just loved when she was on SNR. She came out with the little bit of sexy, teasing, flirting stuff. And of course, I played the foil, even though I was sweating bullets. I put her over, as they say. But I tell you what, to this day, when I see her, she is gracious. You know it, Joe. She's friendly. She's the Deuce. And God bless her. Pleasure to know her.
Yeah, got to see her at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame last July.
And this guy here, I hear that somewhere along the way, he strayed into politics. I'm not really sure about that. Jesse the Body Ventura, one of Eddie Sharkey's premier trainees. Eddie, of course, Jesse was a big fan of superstar Billy Graham and emulated him from the garb to the talk to the strut. But he got the finishing touches going through Eddie Sharkey's training camp way back in the day.
We've talked about it before. Jesse's in-ring work, average at best, but there's no denying that the personality of Jesse the Body Ventura has left a lasting legacy, not only in professional wrestling, but in movies. One of my all-time favorite lines is from the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, A Predator.
Yes.
I ain't got time to bleed. Love that line. I've used that line so many times. I have a little paper cut now. Think of Jesse. I ain't got time to bleed.
Jesse Ventura, we talked about how Hulk Hogan is a cultural icon in his own way. Jesse Ventura made it into the mainstream of America. Very recognizable. Of course, recently he's been returning to Saturday night's main event. I think the business may have changed just a little bit from the time that Jesse was in, and I'm not sure that he doesn't have kind of a hard time with some of the rules and regulations, shall we say, particularly when it comes to a cage match.
Well, Jesse has never followed the rules. I mean,
Never.
These facts.
No. But again, this would be a guy, oh God, would I love to get him on the show. But Jesse Ventura, again, you're talking about the all-time greats out of Eddie Sharkey's training camp. This guy right here, he's right up there.
Well, I don't know if we can get him on the podcast because he's always hanging with the Hollywood stars like Lola Falana and Mick Jagger. Anyway,
Wait a minute.
yeah, you can go back to this one. I almost feel like I should be taken off camera on this one.
I found a picture of Barry Darso to send to you, Chupik. And the reason I picked this one is because he's right up close. He is like right up. He's in your face. He's looking at you. You would almost think by this expression on Barry Darso's face that somebody would have insulted him and said that the Demolition was a cheap Road Warriors knockoff.
I never said cheap knockoff. I just said, well, what I said, that there was a lot of similarity.
Chris, come on in.
I believe it was, you didn't say knockoff. I believe you said imposter or imitation.
It was that they modeled themselves after the.
No. Don't backtrack it. Don't walk it back now.
Roll the tape. I'm gonna get that clip and put that on a future episode. But besides that, Barry Darso, incredible career.
Yeah.
We had the pleasure and the honor of having him on the podcast. He could still kick my ass, but I still think that I could outwalk him right now.
Badge of honor.
Yeah, but he'd smash you and then he'd take away your car. And then he'd go
smash me with an axe. Yeah.
That's right. And
they all do that on the blacktop.
On the blacktop. He would be a bully on the blacktop. He was Repo Man. He was a golfer. I forget what name he used as the
golfer Barry Darso.
Yeah, he was a golfer. He was Repo Man, blacktop bully, Crusher Khrushchev. He even had a stint as a Russian alongside Ivan Koloff. Barry Darso was one of my favorite people, not only in the business but on the planet. I absolutely love this guy. And again, one of Eddie Sharkey's top trainees. That's what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen.
What is it about people from like the Twin Cities that make good Russians? I'm just like realizing that. Like everybody had to be a Russian. Jim Lanning, Scott Simpson, Barry Darso. It's like, I mean, if nothing else, we're going to just call people Russians. I mean, the Robbinsdale Russians, is that?
I like that. The Robbinsdale Russians. That's good.
Russiandale.
Russiandale. There we go.
Yes, I like it.
That's very good. But, I'd like to get Barry back on the show sometime. But, that may be on a week where Chupik is doing something else. Probably be best for all of us. Know what I'm saying?
So I think we've got one more on the list. My favorite gimmick that these three had, of course, the legendary Road Warriors.
Joe and Chris, when you talk about the Sharkey trainees, I think everybody associates the Road Warriors with Eddie Sharkey. And then all of a sudden we show them this list of everybody else that Eddie trained. It's, oh my God, he did that. But the Road Warriors, you would have to say, were Eddie Sharkey's premier pupils. There's no question about it. He took a couple of guys that were doing bouncing at Grandma's Saloon, and he decided he should make pro wrestlers out of them and send them down to Ole Anderson, down in the Georgia Championship Wrestling area. And, Ole, being the old Hard Knocks guy that he was, took a liking to Joe Laurinaitis and Mike Headstrand, gave him the Road Warriors gimmick, put championships on him right away, even though these guys, they were tripping over themselves. They were so green and they were hurting people. They were potatoing people all over the place. but that's what Ole Anderson loved about them, the Road Warriors.
Their impact in professional wrestling, specifically tag team wrestling, I've attributed to them being a part of the change of professional wrestling. I'll throw Hulk Hogan in there for singles. I'll put Sherry Martel in there for women's wrestling, and then the Road Warriors for tag team wrestling. When they burst onto the scene, it was like nothing that anybody had ever seen. Yeah, you had the Crusher and the Bruiser, but it just felt different with the Road Warriors.
They're big and strong and physical, and like they could legitimately beat up anybody that they wanted to, and they came across that way.
Yeah, they scared the shit out of everybody. And take a look at some of their early squash matches. They really did beat the shit out of some guys. In the one of the AWA pay-per-views that we've already seen in our watch-alongs, it's dedicated solely to the Road Warriors, and some of those clotheslines were like, holy shit. And you want to be a professional wrestler? Do a job? Not against these two.
It was interesting because they were supposed to be heels. This is kind of like a Hulk Hogan scenario all over again. But the wrestling fans, the crowd was changing at the time in the mid-1980s. And when they would put the roadies in against even the Crusher and the Baron, who had been beloved here, the fans, a good percentage of them were cheering for the Road Warriors. It was the credibility, the believability, even against Kurt and Larry Hennig. Same kind of a thing. The Hennig's very popular here. But when you got in the ring with the Road Warriors and you hear that strains of Iron Man playing and you get that Road Warrior pop. And as it relates to Eddie Sharkey, remember, Vern wanted the Road Warriors up here when the migration started to go to the WWF. And he had to go through Eddie Sharkey because Eddie was the connection to the Road Warriors. And it just absolutely burned Vern's ass that he had to suck up to Eddie Sharkey after all the heat between them over the years. But Eddie managed to bring the roadies up here, and Eddie got some refereeing gigs out of the deal in the AWA. So it was a whole package deal. But these two guys should still be here. Damn it, they should still be here. And unfortunately, life choices or whatever precludes that. But the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, not the whatever they were towards the end. And,
I like this version though. Like I didn't see this version. I only saw the shoulder pad version, but I like this. Like this version says, "You don't fuck with us." Yep. I mean, you got the shoulder pads. It's like, yeah, that's all for show. This just seems like we will come in and we will tear your head off your neck.
And they did.
And they did. Oh yeah, I mean, some of the guys' heads are still rolling, still in orbit from the clotheslines. One thing I would say, Chris, it was very funny because the Road Warriors, Animal and Hawk, of course, grew up here in the Twin Cities area, the hotbed of the AWA.
You're not from Chicago?
That's what I was going to say. They knew so many people here. They had such a social outlet here. And friends and family and everything else. And here they're coming on AWA TV and talking about growing up on the streets of Chicago.
Yeah.
And nobody bought it. Nobody bought it. Everybody knew Mike and Joe here in the Twin Cities area. Arguably, I don't think
like being bouncers in Minneapolis. That's a good backstory.
Absolutely.
I mean, we were bouncers. We were kicking people's ass for a living. And now we're getting paid good money to do it on TV.
But on the national stage, what sounds tougher, from bouncers from Minneapolis or from south side of Chicago?
I tell you what, tell them they went outside in shorts and t-shirts in the middle of December. Then you'll be tough.
Yeah. Well,
can't argue with that.
Chicago's not exactly Honolulu, Hawaii, anyway. But I will say this about the Road Warriors. I mentioned about how I credit them and Sherry and Hogan with sort of changing the landscape. 41-ish years after they debuted, it's still and always will be referred to as the Road Warrior pop.
Yep.
That's how big of an impact that they made. And speaking of impacts, not only the Road Warriors, but this entire list was all thanks to our friend Eddie Sharkey.
You know, I'm just gonna add this in there. Eddie, God bless him. He's 89 years old, and he's getting around a little bit slower than he did back in the day. He's using canes and walkers and what have you, but he's still making appearances at the shows, still signing autographs, still with those old Eddie Sharkey 8x10s. There's a great picture. That's Eddie with Wes Briscoe and Jerry Briscoe at one of the independent shows here in the Twin Cities area a few years back. Eddie's still looking like a brick shit house. I mean, he's just, God bless him. And I've talked about how Wally Carbo and it was the guy that got me involved in the business. Yeah, but my first TV breaks were with Eddie Sharkey. Eddie took a chance on me, doing commentary for cable television for his old PWA shows. I'll be eternally grateful to Eddie Sharkey. The 7th Street Gym in downtown Minneapolis was a haven for Eddie's trainees back in the day. There we go. This goes back a few years. That was actually at a tribute we did for Eddie Sharkey here in the Twin Cities area. I'm going to say probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe longer than that. But Eddie Sharkey is one of the guys that you can blame for me being in the business. But what we wanted to do here was show that there was more than one training camp here in the Twin Cities area, Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is a pretty goddamn impressive list that we just put out there.
I had the pleasure and honor of having Eddie Sharkey be my booker when I had the very short-lived AWL, American Wrestling League. The majority of the matches we would tape out of First Avenue, downtown Minneapolis. And I was always hopeful that Eddie was going to be there. And every taping that I did out of there, Eddie was there. And I just said, Eddie, I'm going to take care of production. You do the booking. You handle the boys in the locker room. I got enough on my plate right now. And he did. And he was happy to do it. He loved being around the business then, and obviously still loves to be around the business today.
Look at that picture. That is 1986. I'm guessing this is Eddie's got the black T-shirt on. He was a heel manager back in the day. He was going as Fast Eddie Sharkey, and that is the 3 Terminators. The late John Voight, Terminator Crow on the left, Doug Fisher, Terminator Wolf in the middle behind Eddie, and that was Dan Rignotti, Terminator Riggs. So Eddie has been around the block, and I got to say this, he's beloved. The Eddie Sharkey stories that you hear, and I'm not just talking about him shooting up Vern Gagne's wrestling office. Every story that you've heard about Eddie Sharkey being a carny, being a swerver, they're all true, and Eddie will be the first one to put up his hand and say, "You're damn right."
So it sounds like Eddie Sharkey, if there's one business that was made for Eddie Sharkey, it was the wrestling business.
Absolutely, Chris. Tailor-made for it. Folks, you got a list of, and there's more trainees. There's more guys that we didn't mention, but these are the top trainees, couple of dozen almost of Eddie Sharkey's students.
Yeah, and if you get a chance to go to, if you're in the Minnesota area, specifically the Twin Cities, I don't think Eddie travels too far to outstate Minnesota, but if you get a chance, get to an indie show. Eddie will most likely be there. I think he's at a lot of MAW shows. Yeah. I know he has been. And I'm not just promoting, I mean, go and see all of the indie wrestling, support the business, support the young up and rising talent, and maybe even some that are coming down the ladder. But don't miss your chance to go and shake Eddie's hand, get a picture with Eddie, get an autograph with Eddie. Eddie is a legend in the business, maybe not as much outside of Minnesota, but he should be taking a look at the list of talent that we
Yeah,
just
people don't know where these guys started from. It's like, oh, we know the name, but you don't know where they started from.
Yep.
And I think if people would just look at everybody one step back, like a Sean Waltman or Road Warriors or a John Nord or, a Rick Steiner, whoever, like everybody on that list, you'd be like, okay, yeah, everybody started here. And then it just kind of like spider webs out.
No doubt about it. And Joe, to your point about Eddie showing up at these indie shows, if you get an opportunity, thank this guy.
Yeah.
If you're a wrestling fan and you appreciate not only what he's done on the national scale, but here in Minnesota, because when the AWA was dying, it was Eddie Sharkey's PWA that kind of became the hometown promotion. We featured them on SNR all the time, and they were running consistently, so they picked up the slack. But he's a legend. Go up and shake Eddie's hand and thank him for his contributions to the business.
I know we're running long, but just let me share the one last little memory that I have of Eddie. And I say memory, Eddie's still with us, but that's why I'm telling you, get out there, because he's 89 years old or so, and tomorrow's not promised to any of us. But I was at a show at a brewery down in Stillwater, MAW show, I think about 3-4 years ago. And Eddie was there, and I knew that I was privy that Adnan LKC was going to arrive. And he pulled up, his daughter drove him up in a big black Suburban, sort of deserved what, for Adnan and his gimmick. But I went up to Adnan. Adnan at the end had some memory issues. But went up, talked to Adnan, and I said, hey, by the way, Eddie is here. And Adnan's face just lit up. Despite his memory issues, he still knew Eddie. And I recorded this on my phone, just on a, real briefly, but you saw Adnan and Eddie both walking very slowly, but during that entire walk towards each other, they just had the biggest smiles on their face. And as I was recording that, I actually got a little teary-eyed to see these two legends get together for what I'm pretty sure was the very last time that they would have seen each other alive. And they sat very quickly. They sat, they talked, they laughed, they smiled, and I didn't sit there and listen to the whole conversation. This was sort of their private time. I didn't want to, pretend like this is a shoot interview. But to see that, I will remember that forever, for not only Eddie, but for Adnan. Despite Eddie being my booker for about a year, it warmed my heart and warms it again now to just think back on that occasion.
And just as a little aside, Adnan wrestled for Eddie Sharkey on several of those Ropers and Fridley shows, and Adnan's manager at the time was the Golden Idol. So we've got all that connection going on, even though, Idol didn't stick around too long today. But anytime you see the old guard reuniting, it chokes you up. So there you have it, folks. Eddie Sharkey in a nutshell. We love you, Eddie.
Yeah, we might have gone long on this one. We're at about an hour and 23 minutes, but there's probably about 15 minutes that are just can't hear you.
Yeah, apparently Golden Idol didn't pay his Wi-Fi bill. Apparently he's got to get off of one of those old bag phones. You actually got to get a smartphone.
Yeah, but
maybe he was working on a rotary phone. Maybe that's what it was.
But I think that it's Chris. Did you tell him that Mick was going to be a part of this? Because I think when he saw Mick, that's when he couldn't hear as well. Just my guess.
And what they say about rotary phones, it was a little difficult to butt dial somebody back in the day on a rotary phone. But anyway,
let's get to some shout outs, and then we can figure out how to wrap it up here. Because we are going a little long, but it's take 15 minutes out of this, and we're just a tad bit longer than what we would normally be.
And Eddie deserves it.
Yes, he does.
Okay, I've got a dual shout out this week. Two great guys follow us on the podcast, on both the AWA Unleashed and Slick Mick page. Todd Erickson and Lawrence Hurley, two guys that are very loyal to the cause. So, gentlemen, it's a dual tip of the hat this week.
My blind dart throw of the week goes to a rising contributor on our Facebook page, and that is David Fantle. Last post that he had on there was on December 6th, so it was 2 days ago from when we're recording this. Photo of, you might have heard of this guy, some guy named Nick Bockwinkel, but it was Happy Heavenly Birthday Champ. So, David, shout out to you on behalf of Nicholas Bach.
And I'm gonna go Drew Murphy, who's been a longtime Patreon member, always really active, giving us some great feedback. So Drew in Des Moines, thanks a lot, Drew. We appreciate your support from the fantastic state of Iowa. So there we go. Yeah, if you guys want more with our watch-alongs or our back to ringside, $4.99 a month for our pinfall membership. You can go to tpublic.com for any Slick Mick or AWA Unleashed merchandise. And yeah, anything else, guys, before we wrap it up? We've asked for extra TV time and we've gotten it, but I don't.
Well, I just want to know on our TeePublic.
I'm trying to do my Golden Idol thing.
Yeah, on our TeePublic page where you can, or what is that, TeePublic? Yeah.
TeePublic,
where you can go and buy the merchandise. I just want to know, is there going to be some Tub Z merch on there?
No.
You know, that's probably a good thing.